Okay, yes. So my name is Deanna Ray Marrero with an M. Um,
Yeah.
my title, I am the Vice President of Cummins Business Services. That is a global shared services organization. And I have been with Cummins for almost 14 years, since
Oh,
2010.
wow. Yes, that's a long time.
Yes.
And where are you from? Tell me a little bit about your background.
All right. So I was born and raised in Bogota to school there. I'm an industrial engineer. And right out of college, I started working for 3M and worked there for 4 years. And then I continued my career in Minnesota. So that's how I landed in the US many years ago. And I have, from a professional side, the first third of my career was in supply chain, manufacturing, quality, process, product engineering, all of that. Then I took a pause to stay home with my daughter. And upon my return, I decided to go into human resources. By the time we were living in Georgia, in Atlanta. So I joined a company named PrintPack. I worked there in HR, all sort of really amazing things, really amazing company as well. And then in 2010, I started working for Cummins. My husband had already been hired by Cummins 2 years prior to me. And
Oh, wow.
then I came and joined him. We were in Indiana at the time, and it was time for me to stop commuting. I was commuting to the company in Atlanta. So that kind of in a nutshell is where when I joined Cummins, I joined in the HR function. And in 2017, 7 years after I had started, I moved into lead Cummins Business Services, which is what I have been doing for the past 7 years.
Outstanding. Excellent. I'm just curious, how old were you when you came here to the States?
I was young. I was in my 20s. I was 20, 23, 22. Yeah, I was young. I graduated very young from college. So by the time I was 23, 24, I had been already working for 4 years. So I was very young when I moved here. Mhm.
That's excellent.
So
But that's
most of
not even,
my adult life has been in the US, basically.
yeah, yeah, that's excellent. So I know you have a lot of roles in your job, and I was just curious to know what part of your job is most rewarding and fulfilling and why.
Yeah. So the role I have today is pretty amazing because as leading Cummins Business Services, we provide support for the entire company. So from ensuring that all of our employees get paid on time and correctly every time, to ensuring that the infrastructure of our network is keeping the company running, from thinking strategically on what is next and how we can continue to support the growth of the company, our destination series strategy specifically. And then, above all, is to ensure that you inspire the team to understand how what they do on their day-to-day jobs connects to the bigger picture. So you have that really clear purpose on how the importance of what you do, regardless of where in the world you're sitting or what type of work you do. And
Right.
that is
Yeah,
very energizing to me.
absolutely. It's kind of keeping them not only on track, but included. And that's how productivity absolutely
Gets
increases.
impacted. Mhm.
So let me ask you this. You know that there's not that many Latina leaders, right? When you look at the numbers of Latinas in your role in your category, or even CEO type, there's not very many. And we're honored to have you here as this interview and the opportunity to speak to our readers. Can you enlighten us a bit about your journey as a Latina
Yeah.
leader at Cummings?
Yeah.
Maybe some important lessons that you've learned the hard way, or anything you'd want to share with us along the way?
Yeah, and but I want to make sure, Mona, that I correct something. I'm not a CEO, right? I've been at right, okay,
Okay.
C-suite and all
Okay.
that, but I'm not CEO. I lead Cummins Business
You are a leader.
Services. Yeah,
You are in management. Okay, we'll correct that. We'll fix this. So
yeah,
let me reword the question again, okay? So they're not, you're aware that there's not very many Latina leaders, maybe even managers. They are coming up, but there's not very many. And we're honored here to have somebody like you speak with us and talk to our readers. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey as a Latina manager and leader at Cummings and some of the lessons you've learned along the way?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, I think one of the lessons that I learned early on is that it really takes courage to be who you are, especially at work. And when you are, we all have differences. We all have differences. And that comes really one of the things that it was very clear to me from the first day that I started is valuing that difference was really important for us. Now, we had a long journey to get where we are today and where we need to go. But I will say something that wraps the environment that I felt when I came to work at Cummins was my accent uh, was not a handicap. People at Cummins, because we have that global view and that diverse workforce, were very comfortable saying, I don't understand. I didn't understand exactly what you said. Little things like that matter because it sends you a clear message that your voice is important and it's important to understand what you're saying because you're valuable. What happens when people don't act that way is you feel dismissed or you feel that and it's not that. It's for so many people, it's like they're very uncomfortable asking that question. So when I said it takes courage to be who you are, especially at work, is you also have an accountability to open the door when those people are not that open and say, I have an accent, you might not understand me. Please ask me questions. Right. So it's a two by two. So I will say one is that. The other two is you need to come to terms with your own privileges, even when you are very different than others. See, I came because I grew up in Colombia. I was one of many. And I was one of a group that was very homogeneous, right? We were all very similar, social, economical, education. And then you come here, and then now you have a different label upon you, like, oh, well, you're not only a woman or an engineer or a daughter or a wife, you are now a Latina. And that comes with just understanding what that means. And I also came very clear to understand that yes, I'm Latina, and I have a lot of privileges that I needed to come to terms with to really start comprehend the difference among other Latinos and other races. Because until you don't come to terms with your own journey, you cannot impact systematic racism. You need to really come to terms with that.
I absolutely agree with you. And I think a very important form of communication is understanding that and understanding the role, the background, and then implementing it. It produces effective communication. You hit it right on the nail.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then it really coming to comments is it was a company that offered the opportunities that you grab the opportunities and ask, what else, I would like to work on this project. I would like to do this. Even the role that I have today, which it was really a really aspirational role and a role that I wanted to do. I asked for it and I said, I think I can do this role. And they're like, okay, tell me more. How would you do it? How? So again, having the courage to be ready for people to tell you no. Right. It could have, and the other day I did the count. I think for the 14 different roles that I have in my career, maybe double of that I've been told no. But you need to keep finding is like, okay, tell me why not, right? What else do I need to different? Because the trepidation and the fear of being told no, it really is a burden. And it's a burden for Latinas, it's a burden for particularly Latin women. And it's what is the worst thing that could happen? They tell you no, then you at a minimum understand what else is that you need to do different. So I think that's it. And I tell you, one of the really amazing accomplishments was I became the first woman that was at Cummins, that first Latina that became an officer, which is really an honor because it demonstrated the trust the company had in me and that I had done a good job and that I could continue doing it. And it also comes with the responsibility of how now that I sit at different tables, how you open the doors for others. And that was not difficult. Today, I'm really proud to say that at the top, 50 people in the company, six of us, six Latinos, right? So it also shows the commitment of the company to really appreciate differences and to ensure that diversity is really a key for the success of the company. That's how we power the success of our customers with that diverse lens.
you just answered my other question. So I think that that is great advice, is to ask. You never know, unless you ask, but also make sure that you are working for a company that values diversity and understands that. So I think that, we can move on to the next question, but I completely think that that advice for Latinos and Latinas is great advice.
Mhm.
So one of my favorite conferences that we attend, and I attended last year, was the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers, called SHIP. And I want to know about your experience with SHIP. Can you tell me what you experienced?
Yeah. So before I go to the conference, I have to tell you that I was a founder member of SHEP chapter in Minnesota.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
that's how far back I am. I
Right.
actually, one of my best
You saw
friends
it
that
when it was very, very little. You saw it in the infancy
in
stage.
the
Like
infancy, in the
so did
infancy.
I. I remember when they used to say how many members they had. Now they don't even do that, right? You remember?
Exactly, exactly. And it was through a colleague. He was Colombian, happened to be a Colombian engineer, and he knew I had just arrived and said, "Hey, we are founding this chapter." And again, this was really different to me because was another. I'm like, oh, now I'm part of it because I'm Hispanic and different, and that really helped me to understand the work environment, corporate America, right? I met some of my best friends that I'm actually my godson is one of my, the son of my friend that I met through SHEP and that chapter in Minnesota. So it was a very long journey, and I always kept on it because you felt that connection, whether you were an immigrant or whether you were a born Latino, American born Latino, you had all that connection, and there is this really incredible just tie that you feel with your culture. And that is something that Chef does really well, is that it really, really haunts on the Latino culture. And if you were in the conference, there is something about that that feels just such a special place. So the conference last year, the team that we have a long standing connection at Cummins with Chef, because that is another way how we can really attract the talent and attract Latino talent, which is plenty. As you could see in that conference, it was over 3,000, students that were ready to jump into either graduate or in an internship. So coming into a conference and being the speaker, frankly, I didn't realize it was going to be that big. I thought it was going to be small. When I stand in the stage to start doing the rehearsal, I'm like, oh my goodness. So when I see that, it's opportunity. It's like all of these 3,000 audience that people that we're going to have here, young people, this is how we open doors and pay forward to others, right? And I remember telling them, I hope someday you all come and become speakers and you all come and show it's possible. It is possible. It is possible to break through all of the different glass ceilings. It's possible to break through many things. It takes courage, and it's daunting at times. It just feels phenomenal. I actually ended up reconnecting with a couple of people we haven't seen in years. So it was extremely, extremely special. And to see all that talent, it's just, and the stories behind it,
Right. And the
for
success.
some, again, it goes back to your own privileges, right? For some, yeah, they have certain privilege, others have different, others didn't have, and yet you have all that in common that they're ready to join the workforce and make a difference. So it was really impactful. I absolutely loved it. We're going back in November.
Yeah, so we'll be there too. It's actually in our backyard. So, and I remember last year, you could barely walk through the hallway. I mean, and those were wide aisles. And at times, I mean, I would just stand there and go, I can't believe how far they've come. And it's just wonderful. And I think because of the word of mouth and because of the group cohesion, that it's just grown exponentially. I mean, you could just see it. And
Yeah.
I think there's a difference between this conference and others. What are some things that you've noticed about this particular conference that's a little different than maybe others? What do you think part of it is? What do you think attributes to their success?
For me, it felt so much at home because of the culture, right? is this a connection, and it doesn't matter what part of Latin America you're coming from, or even we have people from Spain. Is this,
Everyone's, yeah,
yeah, everybody, whether you're second, third generation, or you're an immigrant, or you're just coming through, or is this familiarity that makes you feel that you belong? And it makes you feel that all of this is my community, and we all can make a big difference, not only when you go into the work, but in the communities that we're in. Is role models, is also a representation of what the population in the United States is. And to see that now we get to a point that we have this huge impact with people that went through college and have a degree, and now we're going to have a force to push others through, is really what makes you realize that there is nothing that you cannot do when you really have the courage to step through it. And I know, I talk with some of the students and the parents behind, and the appreciation. And for some, it was not, it was like, I'm third generation college graduate from my family. And for others, it's like first time, my parents couldn't understand how I could live away from home for 4 years. And so it just comes into the importance of fast forward for everybody else. So really what I was looking is the impact we're going to make in the communities, not only at the corporate, but in the communities where all of these students are coming from and where they're going to. That's really what we need to make a difference. Mm-hmm.
absolutely. And I think they have, and you have as well. I want to talk a little bit about Cummings initiatives. Cummings has several initiatives aimed at supporting different, diverse groups. There's the CARE program for the Black community that's been very successful. Can you tell us a little bit about the CARE program for the Hispanic
Absolutely.
community and its employees?
Yeah. So CARE stands for Cummins Advocates for Racial Equity,
Ah, okay.
which is, it was inspiring. The program was born after George Floyd's assassination or murder. Our CEO and our leadership at the time took a stand on, to advocate for equal racism. You can't just not sit on the sidelines. You cannot just tell, maybe we need to do this. Maybe, no, we need to do something about it. And what we cannot stop ourselves from is, you don't need to make 100% change. But if we don't make at least a 1% change, we are still 100% away from it.
Absolutely.
So we started the CARE program to advocate for Black equity, racial equity, in light of all that happened. And we divided and conquering different focus areas that we had at the time: criminal justice, workforce development, business development, education. And we have really people in the company that volunteer to go after, connect with nonprofits in specific areas in the country where Cummins had a presence, and it was very successful. So from the get-go, we, the Latinos, were like ready to launch, but we also understood that we needed to take, systematic approach and go through the phase with our Black equity communities, and then launch the Latino communities, which happened in September 2023 during our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Conference last year. And I'm, with other three colleagues, are the executive sponsors. Well, our CEO, our CAO are actually and our CR, Vice President, Commons Responsibility Vice President, are the overall AMRG for the CARE program for Latino equity. And what we're looking at is to provide, or the goal of our CARE program is to provide Latino communities access to resources to advance real equity and economic opportunity. So how we're going to do that? So we have four main areas that we are looking at: economic empowerment, social justice reform, and criminal justice reform. And under those three towers, we have teams of volunteers that are specifically working on, and the economic empowerment is business growth and sustainability. That means, how do we fast forward, spring forward small business owners that are Latinos? right? Whether it is business education, whether it is presenting business cases or funding their launching or the expansion of the business. Social justice reform, we have two towers on it. One is education, the other one is workforce development. Education means also educating parents of Latinos, particularly those that are immigrants. And you have your first generation and your parents were immigrants. How do you teach those parents how the opportunities are in the United States to send their kids to college? The difference, the opportunities, financial, support, scholarships. So that is an element of education. So it's not only educate them on teaching them English. It's really how you make that impact that goes through the families and really pays forward for the next generations. Workforce development, how we connect with technical colleges in the cities. And I'll tell you a little bit about how we picked the cities, in the cities that we chose to launch the Latino Care Program. So we have our distribution business that has branches that provide services to all of our engines. So how do we actually go and create partnership with these tech colleges, but also how we also get other companies to do the same, because we cannot only be the only employers for this workforce. So again, is looking at the community, but looking at a community and sustainable initiatives that we bring others with us to ensure that we to move it forward. And the last one under criminal justice reform, youth intervention. Is so much that we can do under this umbrella, whether it is right to counsel, whether it is mental health, whether it's after school programs that really help this youth find different paths. So under all of these, we have all of these volunteers. We have partners in all of the cities. The cities that we chose were Southern Indiana, includes Indianapolis and all the south going to Columbus and Seymour, which is all of that south of Indiana. Our headquarters are in Columbus. We chose El Paso, Texas, Dallas, and Nashville. By the way, I'm based in Nashville. And Nashville, we have had a long-standing relationship with several nonprofit, and we have a workforce here. So we chose those cities based on the level of Hispanic representation, the level of Cummins employees, because we're based really on volunteers. So I can talk, for hours about this, but you can start seeing the difference on how this connecting with this nonprofit that support the Latino communities, we're making a difference. And the important part for us is whatever we do, how do we find the path to sustain when Cummins is not there or when the grant, come to an end? And how did you ensure that that exists? It really has helped the nonprofit to reach out to different other companies, government support, or just simply just figure out how they think through the long term of what they can do. So it has been incredible. I'm part of the board of one of our non-community, Conexión America. I'm the vice president. I just stepped into this. I've been there for 3 years in the board, and my goodness, Mona, that is like multiply this nonprofit and all of that around the country is really impressive what we can accomplish and what they accomplish.
It's obvious that Cummins cares, and it's a great name that they have for it. And that's one of the reasons why we do these interviews, because people may recognize Cummins and maybe they even see them at these diversity conferences, but do they really know what they're doing internally? Do they know about these initiatives? And I think that's what's so valuable, to have these type of talks and interviews, because that's how they got there and people don't realize it.
Yeah.
It takes the people to make the company, and it takes people from the top all the way down who implement these programs. But you said it, to make sure that it sustains.
Yeah.
So that's part of like the recruiting and the retaining. It's like everything else. So it's not just a one way. And I got to commend Cummins and you for doing that, because it's not the easiest thing to do. And you leading the teams isn't the easiest. And I'm going to probably end with my final question to you, which is a twofold, because I really want to know this for others, as well as, any advice that you have for I don't want to just say Latinas, but Latinos, in general who are trying to, advance? And then is there anything else about yourself or your team or the company that you'd like to share with our readers?
Um, on advice to others, I think it goes back to my original, message on, it really takes courage to be who you are. I think especially at work, I think in other areas, you cannot lose your core. You need to take the courage to show the way you are, because eventually that comes one way or the other. And the other thing is, there is nothing wrong with being vulnerable, and put yourself really clearly, in front of whatever audience you are. Because when you do that, you now can focus on your strengths. If you don't unleash that, like get it out of the way, you are going to continue second guessing yourself. Oh my gosh, I know I'm not going to be able to pronounce this word right. Am I going to be able to explain it right? Am I capable? No, you need to go and be vulnerable and say, hey, I'm going to put myself here in front of you. I'm going to be very vulnerable, and I'm willing to listen. Whatever answer you're going to give me, I want this, and here is why. Can I have it? If you need to get to that point, then you can't really tap into your strengths. If you don't do that, you're always
I think
second
that's
guessing it.
excellent. Excellent. You've got to be brave and courageous.
Yeah.
Don't forget who you are. Go to your core. Embrace your background. Be vulnerable. Put yourself out there.
Yeah.
To find your strength. I
Yeah.
think that is
Yeah.
so valuable.
Yeah. And then pay it forward.
And pay it forward.
Now that you're going to sit at those other tables, do something with it. Systematic racism does not get solved by us being passive. So it comes with a responsibility. And take it on and make the change. Do what it needs to happen to make it. It doesn't matter if it's 1%. It's better than you're now 99% closer to your goal.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much for this interview, for this time, for your wisdom, your experience, your journey. We appreciate it. And I look forward to putting this in an editorial. It'll be in our September issue. We'll also use part of the video as well for the video, and we'll show it to you before it runs, of course. And I will, if you're going to be at SHIP, I will be there as well. I'd love to come by and please say hello to you.
Let's connect, Mana. That'd be awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. I wish you the best, and I can't wait to see what's next for you.
Thank you so much. Great meeting you. Bye.
Nice meeting you. God bless.